Listen carefully, because this moment is not ordinary. There was a reason your finger didn't scroll past this. There was a reason your eyes paused, your breath slowed, and something deep inside you whispered, "Wait, this is for me." You may try to brush it off. You may try to explain it away. But you cannot deny it. Something pulled you here. This is not coincidence. This is not algorithm. This is alignment. And whether you fully understand it or not, heaven has just interrupted your routine to get your attention. Because something is about to shift. Have you noticed it lately? That strange feeling you can't quite explain, like something is about to break, but you don't know if it's good or bad. The pressure building in your chest. The moments of silence that feel louder than noise. The sudden memories of things you thought you had already moved on from. The exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix. The questions that keep repeating in your mind. Why has it been so hard? Why do things get taken from me right when they are about to work out? You've asked those questions in private. You've whispered them in moments when no one was around. And you didn't always get answers. But heaven heard every single one. And now, something is responding. You see, there are moments in life when everything seems random. Delays, losses, missed opportunities, doors closing for no clear reason. But what if I told you it wasn't random at all? What if I told you there has been a hidden imbalance, a silent injustice, something taken from you that was never meant to be lost? And what if I told you that imbalance has reached its limit? Because right now, in this very moment, something is being set into motion behind the scenes. Not in a way you can see with your eyes yet, but in a way your spirit is already beginning to feel. Uneasiness. That tension, that strange anticipation. That's not anxiety. That's a signal that something is shifting in your favor. But here's the part that most people miss, and you cannot afford to miss it. When heaven moves, it doesn't always announce itself with clarity first. It announces itself with discomfort, with disruption, with moments that force you to pause and pay attention. And that's exactly where you are right now. Buzzed, interrupted, pulled into something you didn't plan, but something your spirit recognized immediately. You didn't come here to be entertained. You were summoned. Because June 24th is not just another date. It's a marker. A line in the spiritual realm that separates what was taken from what is about to be returned. And right now, before anything even happens physically, you are being positioned mentally, emotionally, and spiritually to receive what's coming. But let me ask you something, and answer honestly within yourself. Why does this message feel so specific? Why does it feel like it's speaking directly to situations you haven't told anyone about? Why does it feel like someone is finally acknowledging something you've been carrying alone? That's because this isn't a general message. This is targeted. This is personal. This is a summons with your name on it. And not everyone will understand it. Some people would have already clicked away by now. Some people would dismiss this as imagination. Some people would never even feel the pull you felt to stay. But you stayed. And that tells you everything you need to know. Because when heaven calls, only those who are meant to hear will hear. Now here's what you need to understand before we go any further. This is not just about blessings. This is about balance, being restored. This is about something that was delayed, diverted, or even taken being recalculated. And when that kind of shift begins, it doesn't start outside of you. It starts within you. Your awareness sharpens. Your discernment increases. Your perspective begins to change. And suddenly, things that once confused you start to make sense. But this is just the beginning. Because what's coming next will reveal what was actually taken from you and why it had to happen the way it did. And once you see that, everything changes. So stay with this. Don't rush past this moment. Because you are standing at the edge of something that was set in motion long before today, and it has finally reached you. Type "I am ready" in the comments if you feel this message is meant for you. Lesson code 2406 is now activated around your life. There is something you need to face now, something you felt for a long time, but never fully allowed yourself to name. Because deep down, beneath all the explanations you gave yourself, beneath all the patience you tried to maintain, beneath all the times you said, "It's okay, maybe it just wasn't meant for me," there has always been a quiet knowing. Something wasn't right. Something didn't add up. And you felt it most in those moments when things were just about to work out, when you were this close to a breakthrough, this close to stability, this close to finally catching your breath, and then suddenly, something shifted. The opportunity disappeared. The support you were counting on vanished. The door that seemed open quietly closed without explanation. And you were left standing there, trying to make sense of it, telling yourself to stay strong, telling yourself to keep going, telling yourself that maybe this was just part of the process. But what if it wasn't just the process? What if something was taken? You see, not every loss in your life was natural. Not every delay was innocent. Not every setback was simply bad timing. Some things were diverted. Some things were withheld. Some things were influenced in ways you could not see at the time. And that's why it hurt the way it did. Because it didn't feel like a normal loss. It felt like something that belonged to you slipped through your hands without a fair reason. Think about it. The effort you put in that never matched the outcome. The loyalty you gave that was never returned. The opportunities that seemed to favor others who did less, while you carried more. The doors that opened for people around you, while you kept waiting, kept pushing, kept hoping. You noticed it. You questioned it. But you didn't stay there long, because you didn't want to become bitter. You chose to stay patient instead. But patience does not cancel truth. And the truth is this: there has been an imbalance. Not just externally, but spiritually. There were moments when your name was supposed to be called and it wasn't. Moments when something was meant to reach you but it was redirected. Moments when favor was assigned to your path but somehow it bypassed you. And you carried the weight of it quietly. You didn't always speak about it. You didn't always confront it. You didn't always demand answers. Instead, you adapted. You adjusted. You told yourself to keep moving forward, even when it felt like you were moving through resistance that others didn't seem to face. That's why this message feels so personal. Because it's not just speaking about loss. It's speaking about loss that never made sense. Loss that didn't match your effort. Loss that didn't reflect your heart. Loss that left you questioning your own worth, your own timing, your own direction. And here's the part that changes everything: none of it was ignored. Every moment you felt overlooked was recorded. Every time something slipped away from you was seen. Every silent frustration, every unanswered question, every time you wondered, "Why does this keep happening to me?" It was all witnessed. Nothing was dismissed. Nothing was forgotten. Because what you experienced wasn't just life being unfair. It was an imbalance waiting to be corrected. And now that correction is approaching. But before it arrives, you had to see this clearly. You had to understand that what you went through was not meaningless. Because if you believe everything was random, you will also believe that nothing is owed. And that is not the truth. Something is owed. That out of a title and that out of alignment. Because when something is taken out of order, it creates a gap, and that gap does not remain open forever. It gets addressed. It gets recalculated. It gets restored. And that's where you are right now, standing at the edge of that realization. The reason your spirit has been restless, the reason certain memories have been resurfacing, the reason you've been reflecting more deeply on your past is because something within you is preparing to recognize what is being returned. But you cannot recognize restoration if you still believe nothing was lost. So let this settle in you now. You were not imagining it. You were not overthinking it. And you were not wrong for feeling like something wasn't right. Because something wasn't. And now it's about to be addressed. Stay present, because what comes next will reveal how everything was being recorded and why nothing you lost is beyond recovery. Type "I see the truth" in the comments if this resonates with your spirit. Blessing code 772 is now aligning hidden restoration in your life. There is something you were never meant to see with your physical eyes, but your spirit has always sensed it. Because beyond what you experienced in the natural, beyond what people said, beyond what seemed visible and explainable, there has always been a deeper system operating quietly in the background. A system that does not forget. A system that does not overlook. A system that does not miscalculate. And right now, you are being invited to understand it. Because while you were living through moments of confusion, while you were trying to make sense of delays and losses, while you were adjusting to things not going your way, something else was happening at the same time. Everything was being recorded. Not just the big moments, not just the obvious losses, but the details, the effort no one acknowledged, the restraint you showed when you could have reacted, the integrity you maintained when it would have been easier to compromise, the opportunities you let go of because they didn't align with who you truly are. All of it. Every unseen sacrifice. Every silent decision. Every moment where you chose to stay grounded instead of becoming bitter. It was all being written. Because there is a ledger that exists beyond human systems. A record that is not influenced by opinions, not altered by favoritism, not distorted by misunderstanding. And in that ledger nothing is missing. Think about how many times you questioned whether what you were doing even mattered. How many times you wondered if your consistency, your effort, your patience was leading anywhere at all. You didn't always get recognition. You didn't always see results. And there were moments where it felt like others were moving ahead faster, gaining more, receiving what you had been working toward for so long. That comparison, that quiet frustration, it wasn't coming from a place of jealousy. It was coming from a deeper awareness that something didn't feel balanced. Because it wasn't. But balance does not have to be immediate to be real. Sometimes it is delayed so it can be undeniable when it arrives. And that is where the ledger comes in. Because what you could not track was still being tracked. What you could not measure was still being measured. What you thought was lost was never removed from your account. It was simply being held. Held until the moment when it could return in a way that reflects everything you've carried, everything you've endured, and everything you've stayed true to. This is why certain things in your life have not collapsed completely, even when they should have. This is why, despite everything, you are still standing, still moving, still aware. Because your account was never empty. It was just not visible yet. And now visibility is beginning. But here is the part that requires your full attention. When something has been recorded for a long time, when multiple moments of imbalance have been documented, when a pattern has been established, the correction is not small. It does not come back in fragments. It comes back with weight. It comes back with precision. It comes back in a way that does not just restore but confirms. confirms that nothing you experienced was overlooked, confirms that every delay had a purpose tied to timing, confirms that every moment you thought you were falling behind you were actually being aligned. Because if everything had come to you immediately, you would not have seen it clearly. You would not have understood its value, and you would not have recognized the difference between what was temporary and what was truly meant for you. But now you can, and now your awareness is different. Now your perception is sharper. Now you can look back and see patterns that once felt random, and that clarity is not accidental. It is preparation. Preparation to receive something without questioning it. Preparation to accept something without doubting it. Preparation to step into something without hesitating. Because when the ledger begins to balance, it does not ask for your permission. It simply aligns. And you are being aligned with it now. But understand this clearly: this is not about luck. This is not about chance. This is about accuracy. This is about something being returned to its rightful place. And you are part of that equation. So do not shrink your expectation. Do not minimize what you feel. Do not talk yourself out of what is unfolding. Because the same system that recorded every moment is now preparing to release every result. And what comes next will show you exactly why nothing was wasted. Type IT was all recorded in the comments if you receive this truth. Blessing code 909 is now activating divine accounting in your life. And as you begin to understand that nothing has been lost, that every seed has been recorded and every moment accounted for, hear this clearly. When you give, you are stepping into that same divine system of multiplication. This message is not just reaching you. It is meant to reach others who are still lost in confusion, still questioning their worth, still waiting for clarity. When you release your support through Super Thanks or the PayPal link in the description, you are sowing light into someone else's darkness, becoming part of the very restoration you are receiving. The word declares, "Give, and it shall be given unto you, pressed down, shaken together, and running over." And that promise is alive right now, speaking directly into your situation. I feel led to say this plainly. I choose to activate what heaven is doing by giving into this moment. Your action is not small. It is prophetic. It is alignment. It is obedience. And as you give, may every hidden record in your life begin to overflow into visible blessing. Now act on this prompting and release your seed. There are moments in time that look ordinary on the surface, dates that pass like any other, hours that seem no different from the ones before them. But beneath what is visible, there are points in time that carry weight, moments that have been set, marked, and aligned long before you ever became aware of them. June 24th is one of those moments. This is not about superstition. This is not about attaching meaning to a random day. This is about alignment reaching a point where it can no longer remain unseen. Because everything you have lived through, everything that has been recorded, everything that has been held in that unseen ledger has been moving toward a moment of release. And that moment has at times them. You have to understand this clearly. Correction does not happen randomly. Restoration does not arrive without timing. There is a sequence to everything. A build-up, a layering, a process that gathers weight until it reaches a point where it must respond. That is where June 24th stands. It is not the beginning of your story. It is not the origin of what you experienced. But it is a turning point. A line where what has been accumulating begins to shift direction. Where what has been held begins to move. Where what has been delayed begins to respond. And the reason this state feels significant even before anything has visibly changed is because your awareness is catching up to what has already been set in motion. Have you noticed how time has felt different lately? Moments feel heavier. Thoughts feel more intense. Certain realizations are coming to you without effort. You are reflecting more, questioning more, seeing connections that you didn't notice before. It's as if something is pulling your attention inward, asking you to pause, to observe, to prepare. That is not random. That is positioning. Because when a turning point approaches, your internal state begins to shift first. You begin to detach from things that once felt important. You begin to see through patterns that once felt normal. You begin to recognize what no longer aligns with where you are going. And sometimes that shift feels uncomfortable because it creates distance. Distance from old versions of yourself. Distance from certain people. Distance from habits, thoughts, and expectations that once felt familiar. But that distance is not loss. It is space being made. Space for something else to enter. And June 24th represents that entry point. But here is what you need to be aware of. Not everyone will recognize this moment for what it is. Some will treat it like any other day. Some will continue moving as if nothing is changing. Some will ignore the subtle signals, the internal shifts, the quiet sense that something is about to happen. And because they ignore it, they will miss the alignment. But you are not here by accident. You have already been pulled into awareness, which means you are already part of the shift. And when you are aware of a turning point, your role is not to force it, not to rush it, not to control it, but to stay aligned with it. Because alignment is what allows you to receive without resistance. Think about how many times in your life something arrived, but you weren't ready to recognize it. How many times an opportunity passed by because your focus was elsewhere. How many times something tried to enter your life, but your mindset, your environment, or your awareness was not in the right place to receive it. This time is different. This time, you are being prepared before it happens. This time, you are being made aware before the shift becomes visible. This time, you are being positioned so that when things begin to move, you don't question it. You recognize it. And recognition is everything. Because when you recognize what is happening, you don't resist it. You don't doubt it. You don't shrink from it. You step into it. And that is why this date matters. Not because something magical happens overnight, but because something that has been building reaches a point where it can finally express itself. Where what has been unseen begins to show itself. Where what has been held begins to release. And once that release begins, it does not return to the way it was before. So as June 24th approaches, or as you stand within its presence, understand this: you are not waiting for something to start. You are standing at the moment where it begins to reveal itself. Stay present. Stay aware. Because what comes next will not only confirm everything you have felt, it will begin to show you how what was taken is about to be reclaimed. Type "I am in alignment" in the comments if you are ready for this shift. Blessing code 624 is now activating divine timing in your life. Now listen closely, because this is where the shift becomes undeniable. Up until now, everything you felt hath been internal. Awareness has been building. Understanding hath been forming. You started to see what was taken, how it was recorded, and why this moment in time matters. But what comes next is no longer hidden. Because when balance begins to correct itself, it does not only elevate one side, it also exposes the other. And this is the part many people struggle to accept. Because it's easier to believe in blessings than it is to understand how correction actually works. But correction is not passive. It is not gentle in the way people expect. It is precise. It is direct. And it addresses the imbalance at its source. That means what was built on what you lost cannot remain the same. Think about that carefully. If something was diverted from your path, if something that belonged to your journey was rerouted, delayed, or influenced away from you, then wherever it went, it created a structure, a position, an advantage. And now that the balance is shifting, that structure cannot hold the same weight anymore. This is why you may begin to notice changes around you that seem unrelated at first. People who once appeared stable becoming unsettled. Situations that seemed secure starting to shift. Opportunities that were out of your reach suddenly opening in unexpected ways. At the same time, you may notice something else. The same ease others once had no longer flowing the same way. The same consistency they relied on becoming unpredictable. The same control they appeared to have slipping in ways they cannot explain. This is not coincidence. This is recalibration. Because when something has been out of alignment, it eventually reaches a point where it must respond to truth. And truth does not negotiate. It grabs. But understand this clearly, this is not about revenge. This is not about punishment. This is about restoration through rebalancing. Because what was never meant to be held cannot remain held when alignment returns. And this is where the discomfort begins, not for you, but for those who benefited from what was not originally theirs to carry. They may not understand what is happening. They may try to hold on to what they have. They may try to maintain control, to recreate patterns, to keep things the way they were. But when alignment shifts, effort alone cannot sustain what was built out of place, because the foundation itself begins to change. And when the foundation changes, everything built on it must adjust. This is why you are being told not to focus on them, not to watch their downfall, not to measure what is happening through comparison or emotion, because your role is not to observe the fall. Your role is to recognize the return, and that requires your full attention. Because while one side is adjusting, the other side is opening, and that opening is where you are positioned. You may feel it already, a subtle shift in your thinking, a growing sense that something is about to change, a quiet confidence that is starting to replace the uncertainty you carried before. That is not imagination. That is alignment catching up to you. But here is the critical part you must not miss: when something is reclaimed, it does not always return in the exact form it left. It returns in the form that matches who you are now. Which means what comes back to you may look different, but it will feel right. It will carry clarity instead of confusion. It will bring stability instead of uncertainty. It will align with your current awareness, not your past expectations. And that is how you will know it is truly yours. Because what is meant for you now will not require you to question it. It will not create the same patterns. It will not repeat the same cycles. It will move with a different kind of ease, not because it is effortless, but because it is aligned. And as this begins to unfold, you must remain grounded. Because it can be tempting to look back, to revisit what happened, to analyze who did what, why it happened, how it could have been different. But that focus will only pull your attention away from what is arriving. And what is arriving requires your presence. So let the correction happen without resistance. Let the shift unfold without interference. Let what was out of place fall into place without your involvement. Because your part in this is not to fight for it anymore. Your part is to receive it. And that requires trust. Trust that what is leaving your life was never meant to stay. Trust that what is shifting around you is part of a larger correction. Trust that what is coming toward you now has already been aligned in your favor. Because once this movement begins, it does not reverse. It continues. It builds. It establishes a new balance that reflects everything that has been recorded. And you are stepping into that balance now. So stay steady. Stay aware. Because what comes next will show you how the transfer itself begins and how what was once out of reach starts moving directly towards you. Type "I receive" what is returning in the comments if you are ready. Blessing code 555 is now activating divine restoration in your life. Now this is the moment where everything you have felt, everything you have begun to understand starts to take form in a way you can no longer ignore. Because there comes a point where alignment stops being internal and starts becoming visible. And this is that point. The transfer does not begin loudly. It does not announce itself in a way that draws immediate attention. In fact, at first, it can feel almost subtle, like small changes, quiet openings, side shifts that don't seem dramatic on the surface. But do not underestimate what is happening. Because what appears small in the beginning is carrying the weight of everything that has been building behind it. You may notice it in the way certain conversations begin to open doors that once felt closed. You may see it in the way opportunities begin to find you without the same level of struggle you were used to. You may feel it in the way decisions become clearer, without the confusion that used to slow you down. That is the transfer beginning. And it is important that you recognize it, because recognition determines how you respond. For so long you were used to pushing. You were used to forcing things forward, trying to make things happen, trying to create movement where there was resistance. You adapted to working harder, waiting longer, and expecting less in return. But now the movement is changing direction. Instead of everything being something you have to chase, things will begin to move toward you. And the shift can feel unfamiliar at first. Because when you are used to striving, receiving can feel uncertain. When you are used to delays, ease can feel suspicious. When you are used to resistance, flow can feel temporary. But this is where you must stay grounded. Because this is not temporary. This is alignment. And alignment does not require the same struggle that misalignment did. That does not mean there will be no effort. It means the effort will finally match the outcome. It means the energy you invest will begin to return results instead of disappearing into delays. And this is where you will start to see the difference. What comes to you now will not carry the same confusion. It will not require you to question whether it is right for you. It will not leave you feeling drained or uncertain after engaging with it. Instead, it will feel clear, direct, grounded. You will know where you stand. You will know what is expected. You will know what you are stepping into. And that clarity is part of the transfer. Because what is meant for you now is not meant to confuse you. It is meant to establish you. But here's something you must understand deeply: the transfer is not only about material things. Yes, there may be financial shifts. Yes, there may be opportunities that impact your external life. Yes, there may be tangible results that reflect what is being restored. But the transfer also happens within you. Your mindset begins to shift. Your confidence begins to stabilize. Your awareness sharpens in a way that allows you to navigate differently. You stop second-guessing yourself the way you used to. You stop seeking validation from the same places. You stop tolerating situations that once felt unavoidable. That internal shift is just as important as anything external. Because without it, you would not be able to sustain what is coming. And this is why the process has unfolded the way it has. Because if everything had been given to you earlier, without this level of awareness, without this level of clarity, it would not have remained stable. Now you are ready. Now you can recognize what aligns and what does not. Now you can receive without losing yourself in the process. And that is what makes this moment different from anything before. But you must remain attentive. Because as things begin to move toward you, there may still be moments where doubt tries to appear. Moments where you question whether this is real, Moments where you wonder if things will return to how they were. That is simply the mind adjusting to a new pattern. You not give it power. Stay with what you are experiencing now. Stay with the clarity. Stay with the movement. Stay with the sense that something is finally responding in your favor. Because in it, and as this transfer continues, it will build. It will not stop at one moment, one opportunity, one change. It will expand. It will layer. It will create momentum. And that momentum will begin to carry you into a different experience of life entirely. One where things are not constantly delayed. One where your effort is not constantly overlooked. One where what you give begins to return in ways that are visible and consistent. And that is when you will fully understand what this moment was preparing you for. So stay open. Stay aware. Because what comes next will challenge the only thing that could still block this movement, and that is doubt. Type "I accept the transfer" in the comments if you are ready to receive. Blessing code 8888 is now activating divine flow and abundance in your life. Now listen carefully, because this is the point where many people lose what was already moving toward them. Not because it was taken away again, but because they could not fully accept it when it arrived. This is the test, not of your strength, not of your effort, but of your belief. Because as the transfer begins, as things start to shift in your favor, as opportunities, clarity, and movement begin to appear, something else will quietly rise alongside it. Doubt. Not loud, not obvious, but subtle. It will not come as fear at first. It will come as questions. Is this really happening? Why now? What if this doesn't last? What if I lose it again? And those questions may seem harmless, but they carry weight. Because doubt does not need to stop everything completely. It only needs to create hesitation. It only needs to slow your response. It only needs to make you second-guess what you already recognize as aligned. And when that hesitation happens, you pull yourself slightly out of alignment. Not fully, but just enough to disrupt the flow. And that is why this stage is critical. Because up until now, everything have been preparing you. But now you must participate. You must choose how you respond to what is happening. You must decide whether you trust the movement or question it. Think about how many times in the past you held back. How many times something good began to happen, but you approached it cautiously, waiting for something to go wrong. How many times you limited your own expectations so you wouldn't be disappointed again. That pattern was built from experience, from repeated delays, from things not working out the way they should have. And your mind adapted by trying to protect you. By saying, don't expect too much. Don't get too comfortable. Stay prepared for a default bard. But that pattern cannot come with you into this next phase. Because what is happening now is not following the same cycle. And if you respond to it with the same mindset, you will treat it like it is temporary even when it is not. You will hold back when you should be stepping forward. You will question what you should be accepting. You will delay your own alignment without even realizing it. That is why this is called a test. Not because something is being taken from you, but because something is being revealed within you. Your ability to trust. Your ability to receive. Your ability to stand in something new without expecting it to collapse. And this is where you must become aware of your internal response. Because what is happening externally is already in motion. But what happens internally determines how fully you experience it. You may notice moments where things go well and your immediate reaction is to wait, to pause, to see if it continues, instead of stepping into it fully. That is hesitation. And hesitation creates distance. Not because the opportunity disappeared, but because your engagement with it weakens. So when you feel that hesitation, do not ignore it. Acknowledge it. Recognize it for what it is, a leftover response from a past pattern. And then choose differently. Choose to stay present. Choose to engage. Choose to accept what is unfolding without trying to control its outcome. Because control is often just fear in a different form. And fear cannot guide you here. Only awareness can. Only alignment can. And this is where your focus becomes essential. Do not look for signs that something will go wrong. Look for confirmation that things are aligning. Do not measure this moment by your past experiences. Measure it by what is happening now. Because what is happening now is different. And you can feel that. There is a steadiness to it. A clarity to it. A sense that things are finally responding instead of resisting. And that is your confirmation. So do not allow doubt to grow beyond a thought. Do not give it space to become a belief. Do not repeat it until it feels real. Because it is not real. It is just familiar. And familiarity is not truth. You are stepping into something that does not match your past. So your mind will try to compare it to understand it. But this is not something to compare. This is something to experience. Fully. Without holding back. Without waiting for it to prove itself. Because it already has. Everything that has led you here has proven that this moment is different. And now it is your turn to meet it with the same level of certainty. Because what comes next will not wait for you to feel ready. It will continue moving. And your role is to move with it. Not behind it. Not against it. But with it. Type "I trust what is happening" in the comments if you choose alignment over doubt. Blessing code 707 is now strengthening your faith and clarity. Now this is where everything that has been quiet begins to speak. Because when alignment reaches a certain point, it does not only restore what belongs to you, it also reveals what was hidden from you. And this part cannot be avoided. You may have sensed it already that something beneath the surface has not been fully clear. A certain situation that did not make sense. That certain people behaved in ways that felt inconsistent. That certain outcome that did not match the effort or truth you carried. You noticed the gaps, but you did not always have the full picture. That changes now. Because exposure is not about confrontation, it is about clarity. It is about seeing things as they actually are, without distortion, without confusion, without the filters that once made you question your own perception. And when that clarity begins to rise, it does not always come all at once. It comes in moments. A realization here. A connection there. A sudden understanding of something that once felt unresolved. You may revisit conversations in your mind and suddenly see them differently. You may recognize intentions that were not obvious before. You may understand why certain things unfolded the way they did, not as random events, but as part of a larger pattern. That is exposure. And it is necessary. Because without it, you would carry the same assumptions forward. You would trust in the same way, respond in the same way, and potentially recreate the same experiences. But now your awareness is shifting. You are not seeing from the same perspective anymore. And that shift will protect you. It will guide you. It will allow you to move differently without needing to force anything. But here is something you must understand: exposure is not always comfortable. Because it can challenge what you believe. It can show you things you did not want to accept. It can reveal that certain people, certain situation, or even certain choices were not aligned with you the way you once thought they were. And when that realization comes, you may feel a mix of emotions. Not anger but clarity. Not resentment but detachment. Because when you truly see something for what it is, you no longer need to fight it. You simply move away from it. And that movement creates space. space for what is aligned to enter fully. But here is the key: do not try to force exposure. Do not go looking for problems. Do not question everything or everyone around you. Because what needs to be revealed will reveal itself, naturally, without pressure, without confrontation, without you needing to interfere. And when it does, trust what you see. Do not dismiss it. Do not explain it away. Do not return to old patterns of giving the benefit of the doubt when your awareness is clearly showing you something different. Because this clarity is part of your alignment. It is what allows you to move forward without carrying what no longer belongs in your life. And as this process continues, you will notice something else. The need to explain yourself begins to disappear. The need to prove your perspective fades. The need to hold on to what does not feel right weakens. Because once you see clearly, you no longer need external confirmation. Your awareness becomes enough. And that is where your strength comes from now. Not from forcing outcomes. Not from controlling situations. But from understanding them and choosing accordingly. So as things begin to reveal themselves, stay grounded. Stay observant. Stay aligned with what you feel is true. Because this stage is not about reacting. It is about recognizing. Recognizing what is aligned. Recognizing what is not. And allowing that awareness to guide your next steps naturally. Because what comes next will require that clarity. It will require that level of awareness. It will require that ability to move without hesitation. And this exposure is preparing you for that. So let it unfold. Do not rush it. Do not resist it. Because what is being revealed now is making space for what is about to fully arrive. Type ISE clearly now in the comments if you receive this clarity. Blessing code 818 is now activating divine revelation in your life. And as truth begins to rise and hidden things are brought into the light, understand this: every seed you sow into this moment becomes a light for someone else still walking in confusion. This message is not just for you. It is meant to reach those who cannot yet see what you now see. When you release your support through Super Thanks or the PayPal link in the description, you are not giving to a platform, you are igniting clarity in another soul who is waiting for their breakthrough. The word declares that those who sow generously will also reap generously, and this is not distant truth, it is active right now in your life. I feel this strongly. I step into alignment by giving in to what is changing lives. Your action carries weight in the unseen before it manifests in the seen. As you release your seed, may every hidden area of your life be filled with light, clarity, and undeniable direction. Act now and become part of this divine flow. Now this is where everything becomes personal. Because up until this point, you have been observing. You have been understanding. You have been recognizing the shift, the exposure, the movement, the transfer. But now you are being asked to step into your role within it. Not through force, not through pressure, but through positioning. Because what is coming to you requires you to be in the right state to receive it fully. And positioning is not about doing more. It is about aligning correctly. You see, many people believe that when something is about to change, they must act quickly, do something drastic, make sudden decisions, or try to control the outcome. But that is not what is required here. What is required is awareness. Because the right position is not something you create through effort. It is something you step into through clarity. And that clarity has already begun forming within you. You feel it in the way your priorities are shifting, in the way certain things no longer hold the same importance, and the way your attention is naturally being pulled toward what feels real and away from what feels forced. That is positioning happening naturally, but you must support it. Because there are still subtle habits, subtle patterns, subtle thoughts that can pull you out of alignment if you are not aware of them. And this is where your focus matters most. Right now you must become intentional with your attention. Where you place your energy determines how stable this transition becomes. If you focus on what is leaving, you create resistance. If you focus on what is arriving, you create alignment. So do not spend time analyzing what has already been revealed. Do not keep revisiting what has already shown itself to be out of place. The chapter is closing, and your role is not to rewrite it. Your role is to step forward. But stepping forward requires something specific. It requires you to trust what you now see. Because positioning is not just external, it is internal. It is the way you think, the way you respond, the way you choose what deserves your attention. And right now, your attention must be directed toward what is aligned, toward what feels clear, toward what moves without resistance. Because that is where your path is opening. You may notice that certain choices are becoming easier. Certain decisions no longer require the same level of overthinking. Certain directions feel obvious even if they once felt uncertain. That is not coincidence. That is clarity guiding you. And your responsibility is to follow it, not question it, not delay it, not compare it to past experiences, because what guided you before was based on a different level of awareness. What is guiding you now is based on alignment, and alignment does not need to be explained. It needs to be followed. But here's where many people lose their position. They hesitate. They wait for confirmation from others. They look for reassurance outside of themselves. They try to make sure everything is perfect before they move. And in doing that, they slow down what is already aligned. Do not do that. You are not being asked to have all the answers. You are being asked to trust what is already clear. And clarity does not shout. It is quiet. It is steady. It feels simple, not complicated. So if something feels simple and clear, do not overcomplicate it. That is your direction. That is your position. And as you begin to move in that direction, you will notice something important. Things will begin to meet you. The right timing, the right conversations, the right opportunities. Not because you forced them, but because you aligned with them. And that is how you will know you are positioned correctly. Because movement will feel supported, not resisted. But remember, this positioning also means letting go. Letting go of the need to control outcomes. Letting go of the need to understand everything immediately. Letting go of the attachment to how things should look based on your past. Because what is coming may not match your previous expectations. It will be better aligned but different. And you must allow that difference. You must allow things to unfold in a way that reflects who you are now, not who you were before. Because you are not in the same place anymore. You are not operating from the same level of awareness. You are not responding from the same patterns. And that is exactly why this moment is happening. So stand where you are with clarity. Move where you are guided with confidence. And release what no longer aligns without hesitation. Because you are not trying to find your position anymore. You are already in it. Now you just have to remain there. Type "I am positioned" in the comments if you are aligned with this moment. Blessing code 919 is now anchoring divine direction in your life. Now this is the part that will feel almost unreal when it begins. Because everything you have gone through up until this point has likely felt slow, delayed, stretched out longer than it should have. You waited for things to change. You waited for answers. You waited for movement. And often nothing happened when you expected it to. It was a pattern. But that pattern is not continuing. Because when alignment reaches its peak, when everything that has been building finally locks into place, the pace changes completely. What once felt slow becomes fast. What once felt blocked becomes open. What once took time begins to happen all at once. This is acceleration. And acceleration does not feel like gradual progress. It feels like sudden movement. You may wake up one day and realize that things are no longer the same. Not because you forced them to change, but because they reached a point where they could no longer stay the same. And when that happens, it can feel overwhelming if you are not prepared for it. Because your mind is still used to the old pace. It is still expecting delays. It is still anticipating resistance. But what is happening now is moving faster than that expectation. And that is why you must stay grounded. Because acceleration requires stability. If you are not stable internally, rapid change can feel chaotic instead of aligned. So as things begin to move quickly, do not rush your response. Do not try to match the speed with urgency. Instead, stay centered. Stay clear. Stay aware of what is actually happening. Because even though things are moving fast, they are not random. They are precise. Every opportunity that appears, every connection that forms, every shift that takes place, it is all part of a sequence that has already been set. And your role is not to chase it. Your role is to recognize it and move with it. But here is where acceleration becomes real. You will begin to see multiple areas of your life shifting at the same time. Not just one. Not just a single opportunity or a single change. But several things aligning simultaneously. And that can feel unfamiliar. Because you are used to focusing on one thing at a time, waiting for it to stabilize before something else changes. And now it will not work that way. Because when the transfer builds momentum, it does not isolate itself. It expands. It touches different areas. It creates a chain reaction. And that reaction is what creates the sense of sudden change. You may find that things you once struggled to access are now within reach. Conversations that once felt distant are now happening naturally. Decisions that once felt complicated are now clear. And all of this may happen within a short period of time. That is acceleration. But here is the key you must hold on to. Do not let speed create pressure. Because pressure will make you feel like you have to figure everything out immediately. And that is not required. You are not being asked to control the acceleration. You are being asked to stay aligned within it. Because alignment will guide your next step even when everything is moving quickly. So when multiple things begin to shift, do not panic. Do not overanalyze. Do not try to slow it down out of fear of losing control. Because this movement is not meant to be controlled. It is meant to be experienced. And the more you stay present with it, the more natural it will feel. You will begin to trust the pace. You will begin to see that things are not happening randomly, they are happening in order. Even if that order feels fast. And this is where your awareness becomes your anchor. Because while everything around you is changing, your clarity remains steady. Your understanding remains grounded. Your ability to recognize what aligns remains intact. And that is what keeps you stable through acceleration. But understand this clearly: once this movement begins, it does not return to the old pace. It does not go back to delays. It does not return to constant resistance. Because the foundation has shifted. And when the foundation shifts, the pace follows. So do not expect things to slow down in the way they used to. Instead, adapt to the new rhythm. A rhythm where things respond faster. Where alignment creates immediate movement. Where what belongs to you does not stay out of reach for long. Because you are no longer operating from the same position. You are now aligned with the movement itself. And that is why everything begins to happen suddenly. So stay ready. Stay present. Because what comes next will show you what this new pace creates and how it establishes a completely different experience of life. Type "I move with the shift" in the comments if you are ready for acceleration. Blessing code 1010 is now activating rapid alignment and movement in your life. Now this is where everything begins to settle into something real, something stable, something you can stand on without questioning whether it will disappear again. Because after the shift, after the exposure, after the transfer and the acceleration, there comes a moment where everything that has been moving begins to establish itself. This is the new season, and you will feel the difference immediately. Not because everything suddenly becomes perfect, but because everything becomes clear. Clear in a way you have not experienced before. You will no longer feel like you are guessing your next step. You will no longer feel like you are chasing what keeps moving away from you. You will no longer feel like you are trying to hold together something that keeps falling apart. Instead, you will feel grounded, steady, certain. And that certainty is what defines this season. Because for so long, uncertainty shaped your decisions. You adjusted based on what might happen. You hesitated because you were unsure. You held back because you did not know if things would last. But now that uncertainty is being replaced with awareness, replaced with clarity, replaced with a sense that what is in front of you is not temporary, and that is where your authority begins. Because authority is not about control. It is not about forcing outcomes. It is about knowing where you stand and moving from that place without hesitation. And that is exactly what this season gives you. You will begin to notice that your decisions carry more weight. Not because they are louder, but because they are aligned. You will speak with more certainty. You will move with more confidence. You will recognize what is right for you without needing to question it repeatedly. And that shift will change everything. Because once you move from certainty, your environment responds differently. People respond differently. Opportunities respond differently. Because you are no longer approaching life from a place of seeking. You are approaching it from a place of knowing. And that knowing creates stability. But here is something you must understand deeply. This season will require you to maintain what hath been given. Because restoration is not just about receiving. It is about sustaining. And sustaining requires consistency. It requires you to stay aligned even after things begin to feel normal again. Because once stability sets in, it can become easy to forget what brought you here. It can become easy to fall back into old habits. Old ways of thinking, old patterns of hesitation. But you cannot return to those patterns, because they do not belong in this season. This season requires presence. It requires awareness. It requires you to continue choosing alignment even when nothing feels urgent anymore. Because the absence of urgency does not mean the process has ended. It means it has stabilized. And stability is where growth truly begins. You will also notice something else in this season: peace. Not temporary peace. Not moments of calm between stress. But a consistent sense of ease that remains even when challenges appear. Because challenges will still come. Situations will still arise. But they will not affect you the same way. They will not create the same level of disruption. Because your foundation is different now. You are no longer reacting from uncertainty. You are responding from clarity. And that changes everything. So when something arises, you will not panic. You will not overthink. You will not lose your sense of direction. You will address it and continue moving. That is authority. That is what it looks like to stand in a new season. And this is where you begin to fully understand what this entire process was for. It was not just to give you something external. It was to shift you internally, so that what you receive matches who you have become. Because if you had received all of this before without this level of awareness, it would not have remained stable. And now it will. And now it will grow. Now it will expand without collapsing. Because you are different. And that difference is what sustains everything that is coming into your life now. So do not look back. Do not question whether you deserve this. Do not wait for something to take it away again. Because this is not the same cycle. This is a new season. And it is established. So stand in it. Move in it. Live in it fully without hesitation. Because what comes next will remind you why this moment was so important and why you could not afford to miss it. Type "I step into my NEW season" in the comments if you are ready to walk in this authority. Blessing code 1111 is now sealing stability and clarity in your life. Now listen, because this is the moment everything has been leading to. You have seen the pattern. You have felt the shift. You have understood what was taken, what was recorded, what is now being returned, and how everything is aligning in your favor. But none of it matters if you miss this moment. Because every shift, no matter how powerful, still requires one thing from you: attention, presence, awareness. And right now, more than ever, you cannot afford to drift. Because what is unfolding is not just a temporary opportunity. It is a defining moment. A moment that separates who you were from who you are becoming. A moment that determines whether you fully step into what has been prepared or allow it to pass partially recognized. And this is where the warning comes in. Not a warning of fear, but a warning of awareness. Do not return to distraction. Do not fall back into autopilot. Do not allow old patterns of thinking, reacting, or doubting to pull you out of alignment now. Because this moment requires your full presence. You have come too far to only receive part of what is yours. Think about everything you have moved through. The confusion, the delays, the moments where nothing made sense, the times you questioned whether things would ever shift. And now that shift is here, not coming, not approaching you. And yet, the only thing that can still limit how much you receive is how present you remain. Because when something new begins, there is always a pull back toward what is familiar. Familiar thoughts, familiar distractions, familiar habits that once filled your time and attention. And if you fall back into those without awareness, you begin to disconnect from what is unfolding now. Not completely, but enough to dilute it. Enough to slow your ability to recognize what is being placed in front of you. That is why this moment requires discipline. Not effort, but awareness. The discipline to stay connected to what you now understand. The discipline to remain aligned with what you now see. The discipline to choose presence over distraction. Because what is happening now is not something you revisit later. It is something you step into fully while it is active. And it is active now. You may already feel it, that sense that something is different. That things are not the same as they were even a short time ago. That your awareness is sharper. That your perspective has shifted. That you are seeing things in a way you did not before. That is not temporary. That is activation. And once activated, you cannot go back to being unaware. You can only choose whether to stay aligned or drift. So choose alignment. Choose to remain present in your decisions. Choose to engage fully with what is opening in front of you. Choose to trust what you now recognize as real. Because this is not a moment you repeat. This is a moment you respond to. And your response determines everything. Because what is being placed in your life now is not just restoration. It is responsibility. Responsibility to maintain what you receive. Responsibility to move differently. Responsibility to no longer tolerate what once held you back. And that responsibility is what keeps this new season stable. So do not minimize this moment. Do not treat it as just another phase. Do not assume it will remain available without your awareness, because it is here for you now. And now is where everything changes. So stand fully in it, without hesitation, without doubt, without looking back, because what is aligned with you now is ready, and it is waiting for you to meet it completely. Type "I will not miss this" in the comments if you are fully present in this moment. Blessing code 1212 is now sealing divine alignment and completion in your life. And as you stand in this moment of divine alignment, understand this deeply: what is flowing into your life right now is the same light that is meant to reach countless others still waiting in darkness. Every time you choose to support this mission through super thanks with a PayPal link in the description, you are not giving to a channel, you are becoming a vessel through which God reaches another soul at their breaking point. The word declares, "Cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days," and this is that moment where your seed becomes someone else's salvation. I declare this with you. I release into this work because I recognize the harvest connected to it. This is not a casual action, it is a prophetic response to what God is doing through you right now. As you give, may every delayed blessing in your life accelerate, may every hidden record overflow, and may every door meant for you open without resistance. Now act in obedience and release your seed.